Hello, so my name's Nate, and I'm somebody that talks about narcissistic abuse and the dynamics of these relationships. I'm 44 years old, and I discovered narcissistic personality disorder as a term here in February when I created my very first videos on my other account that's just currently on timeout. So we'll get that account back up and running. But, one of the things that you won't hear me do is I don't introduce myself as a narcissistic abuse survivor. And there's a key reason why. Early on in the process of figuring things out, I followed a lot of creators, and the information was extremely valuable. But something that I noticed that didn't sit well with me was that there appeared to be a certain degree of stuckness, particularly with content creators or people that self-identify as survivors of narcissistic abuse. And the thing about this is called victim identity. You see, I refuse to be a victim. That what I want is a maximum amount of discernment. I'm not willing to live a life where I'm going to carry myself as an emotionally vulnerable empath, a perpetual victim, somebody that has to hypervigilantly scour the landscape for red flags and live in a perpetual distrust of other people. I'm not going to project what happened to me in my past on anybody or any woman or hold anybody accountable. And I'm certainly not going to forfeit my capacity for trusting people. In fact, I've learned through this process that trust is the last thing that I need to worry about, that I'm not going to be distrustful and I don't need to be trusting either. That I want to be maximally observant. I want to take everything that I've learned and simply enhance my discernment and not live in fear of other people. What I've realized is that trust and fear become the very barriers through which love bombing penetrates. That if I live my life distrusting and fearing other people, then how is anybody going to ever appeal to me? It's going to have to be emotionally. How do you think people get scammed financially? Is that they're distrusting and so they lack discernment. They don't listen to and qualify the validity of the information, but they can be appealed to emotionally. And so their greed, their desire to change their life, the promises made by the scam artist overpower their fear. And then they create a future that they want to believe in compared to their suffering. And so if you're being love bombed, what you're doing is you're actually choosing to trust something that's unrealistic. A soulmate from Tinder. Somebody with this checkered background of failed relationships with a bunch of crazy exes somehow is this blissfully perfect individual that perfectly matches your energy, your love, and reciprocates seemingly everything that you bring to the table. And voila, wow, destiny unfolding right before your eyes. You see, your distrust of people is what expels healthy, normal people. Because if you don't trust people, they all look the same. If you're going to engage and interact in life from a position of distrust, well, then you're going to be mistreating people. You're going to be projecting your fear, your concern, your trauma onto everyday people, and you're going to be a healthy person repellent. What happens to the person that gets scammed? They feel betrayed. They feel foolish. When somebody feels foolish, guess what? They lose confidence in their discernment. And they decide to displace the responsibility of their lack of discernment onto trust itself. That I trusted somebody and that's how I got hurt. And so they become distrustful, the other side of the trust coin, which is nothing more than the same thing. I want you to know, when you are trusting somebody, you're not trusting them. You ever had somebody tell you, but I'm trusting you with this? You can feel the insecurity. That they don't understand you. And so if you don't understand something, you have to take it on faith, i.e. trust. It's your lack of discernment that requires trust and the promises of the fantasy to override your lack of trust. And so by being distrusting, you are just an invitation for scams and love bombing. And while you take a time out in life, what are you not doing? You're not growing, you're not learning. The reality of everything you want, it's going to take stepping to the plate. It's going to take heartbreak, it's going to take failure. And you're either going to learn the discernment that was missing and be responsible for that, or you're going to be a victim. And when people are victims, people displace the responsibility of their victimization onto the narcissist. And there's a whole chorus of people that are stuck there. And so people that subscribe to victim ideology are people that'll maintain vitriolic sentiments, that'll demonize, and that will be hypervigilant and aggressively angry and just incapable of, the kind of quality relationships that they want. They create all kind of weird rules, 90 days no kissing, and things that would make absolutely no difference. As somebody that's lived among narcissists for decades, my entire life, I've had long-term friendships and relationships with people. So if you're going to friend zone a narcissist, they'll wait that out. It won't make any difference. It will make no difference to do that, because you're just prolonging the idealization. You're preventing devaluation. You're not engaging in the kind of relationship. And then what happens is you just took 6 months out of your life. Like, you would want to distinguish the narcissistic tendencies on the front end and discard them right away, right during love bombing. You wouldn't want to just, if you're trying to find the one and you're going to take 6 months to figure it out, and how old are you? No. And so if you're not doing things to enhance your discernment, if you are assimilating terminologies into your knowledge base that only bolster your victim story with notions of your trauma bond is why you can't let go, or your cognitive dissonance is still running your life even though you have that terminology. If all the knowledge of all these things has not really impacted your confidence, your freedom, your self-expression, your willingness to love and be loved, your faith in humanity, that something is not complete in your discernment yet, because you should rejoice in the fact that you now understand this stuff and can avoid it. That there are existing out here healthy, intact individuals that would absolutely love you. That you can have the quality of life and relationship you want, and you can have it a lot sooner than you would if you remain on the trauma bond healing journey express, continually to consume more knowledge, more information that has not in any manner actually impacted your view of life and what's possible for you. That you have not transformed your relationship to yourself. That you have not yet forgiven yourself. That you have not yet really fully taken this information and made it part of your in-the-moment discernment. And you have not let go of all these nonsensical notions of love and your emotional needs that are just a recreation of your own childhood trauma. That it's almost as if you expect to be love bombed by a healthy person, and you can't tell the difference yet. You think that all those feelings you felt with the narcissist was falling in love, when it was merely feeling good enough, feeling secure, feeling complete, having a second opportunity of healing yourself or getting the needs met that weren't met as a child. And so oftentimes, as the codependent partners in narcissistic abuse relationships, we have different emotional needs than healthy, intact people that have a lot to do with the fact that we have not yet gotten complete about the failure that we experienced ourselves being in toxic relationships with maladjusted parents, dead mothers, whatever the case may be. And if you don't get those things addressed and resolved and unwind the whole picture of the vicious circles of your own existence, all the information in the world isn't going to do anything for you except feed into the victim stories. And that's why you don't hear me say, "Hi, I'm Nate. I'm a narcissist abuse survivor," and continue to regurgitate the suffering stories of my past merely to gain sympathy, because I'm going to tell you something. A lot, and I mean a lot, of purported victims of narcissistic abuse are themselves vulnerable, covert narcissists, inverted narcissists. Many of them are coaches. Many of them are getting supply out of the sympathy that they gain by continuing to portray themselves as emotionally afflicted and giving a lot of validity to the preservation of victim identity. So, no victim identities here.